Butcher Babies actually released 2 albums on the same day, so I'm going to be talking about both of them, but I don't want to dwell on this first project too much. Honestly, this project was just full of singles that are just years old at this point, and songs that were pretty just D-tier to say the least. The first 2 songs, Sleeping with the Enemy and Bottom of a Bottle, were pretty decent, but other than that, this is a pretty forgetful project in the Butcher Babies discography. And now it's like I'm just holding hands with the wrong end of... This album isn't too bad, honestly. I can say that it's not my favorite just because 2017's Lilith is just their magnum opus in my opinion. I love that album. This project for the first half has some of Carla Harvey and Heidi Shepard's best vocals to date, and the harmonies on Red and Thunder. I like the slower pacing and post-hardcore nature of Wrong End of the Knife. The pure vocal melodies on Last December are what Thrown Away wanted to be, and just shows a maturity in the sound and structure of the music. Beaver Cage being pure carnage and thrash metalcore at its finest. The Devil Cut Me Off is a pure Pantera song, but I don't even care. Probably the last half of the album just kind of blends together, but that's pretty much the biggest criticism I have of it. I enjoyed some of Dominic's earlier singles when he was associated with Brockhampton back in the day, and this is my first deep dive into Dominic's actual music, but I really do love the mix of indie bedroom pop and hip-hop blend that is covered throughout Sunburn. Dominic's soothing melodies and infectious flow are just some of the things that really draw me to this music and the project itself. And Ant Pile, Sick, Dancing in the Courthouse, Bodies, and Dark are probably the best examples of this. And probably a thing that I would say as a con is that some of the production is a little bit too muddy at some points, or maybe the songs may be a little bit too basic, or can need a much needed feature, or just something to add on top to just give it a little bit more personality. And I did it for love, 'cause the little thing. This music reminds me a lot of Clairo or Cave Town, as it has that indie pop mix with a lot of acoustic guitar and light singing with soft melodies in the background. The songwriting could use a little bit of work, but I thought this project was alright. I know that I'm going to be disagreed a lot on this album, but power metal is not really my forte. I just don't really like the very over-the-top nature of the vocals, and can find it sort of annoying at times. Edge of Paradise do have a decent mix of industrial and melodic metal in their instrumentals as well. I really like the guitar solo on Unbeatable, by the way. But like I said, most of the songs just sound the same to me, and I don't feel like I'd gravitate towards this band, but I do feel like they would be a great band to see live. This album is actually pretty somber and hopeless in tone, as I found the songwriting to be almost like a journal entry or almost like a suicide note at times, as Glaive's vocal performance just sounds like he's on the verge of tears, or like on the opening track, he just absolutely sings his lungs out and still performs a successful chorus with relatable songwriting on top of being in a mental breakdown as well. It's honestly something I can relate to, with these same thoughts of depression, loneliness, anxiety, heartbreak, drug abuse, suicide at 18 years old when I was that age. And Glaive only being that same age now and me being 21, it's almost cathartic hearing someone be so open about their most vulnerable thoughts, and even the song titles almost sounds like they were notes or like times where the songs needed to be made. I can tell you now that I have never heard an album that sounds like this. So many different styles of metal and rock and hip-hop and even sometimes reggae and sometimes pop can be mixed into one song, and somehow you mix it with these vocals that can be compared to Marilyn Manson, Rob Zombie, Brand Sacrifice, Left to Suffer, and Chris Motionless. All on the same song, and all of these elements are just combined in a way that I just cannot explain. It is masterfully crafted throughout, and it did take me a little bit to get into, but some of the songs of this project really just do slam hard, and I cannot help but recommend you give it a listen and hear for yourself this absolute carnage of insanity of an album this is.
Now Jimmy found out his daddy got killed in his house. Stuck in the game, he was trying to get out. Some bitch nigga ran.
This album is just slightly better than What It Means to Be King, except that the songwriting and rapping is better performed, and the rapping is better performed and written, and the instrumentals sort of suffer from this factor. But at least Straight to It with Fabio Foreign goes pretty hard, which I don't know why we're still dropping King Von's music. He's let him rest. Probably Lil TJ's best project to date. TJ has always been an artist that I've kept my eye on since about 2019 or so, and after hearing the news of his shooting, I was glad to hear of his recovery as well, and I also wanted to know how his music would sound after he went through that life experience. And I had to say that the songs in general are just better, and TJ really just knows how to be dynamic, and he's really showing that style throughout the project, which was something that I thought he was lacking on his most recent project in 2021, where he mostly just stuck to doing melodic emo rap or really soft trap beats that really weren't convincing at all. So good work by Lil TJ. After seeing PVRIS at Sad Summerfest this year and hearing some of the singles off of this album, which were Animal and Good Enemy, I thought that they were decent power pop tracks and thought that they were performed pretty well live. Lin Gun has a really does have a great, incredible voice, and I do feel like the production and instrumentals were very lacking on this project, and I just thought that this album was just a downgrade from their 2020 endeavor. Man, I feel like this gimmick is just worn off at this point. I've known about Scarlord since about 2017 and even saw him open for Bring the Horizon back in 2019, but I was just worried that this man's voice is just gonna give out because I cannot keep hearing someone screaming at the top of their lungs over compressed drums and distortion so much. I feel like that kind of died out as a trend back in like 2018, 2019. Wait, I listened to this album? I really do like From Ashes to New, and I do love their mix of rap and rock that they have really embraced since their first project, as I was a big fan of Hollywood Undead back in the day, so this mix was rather compressing to my ears. I would not say that Blackout is their worst. If anything, it's probably a second or third best, depending on who you ask. Matt and Danny always have a really great dynamic, with Danny's soaring high register choruses, and Matt's aggressive delivery and rapping are like PB&J. And the first 4 tracks are a really good run of songs, but then the rest of the album, other than Until We Break with Matty Mullins of Memphis Made Fire, which is probably the top 3 on this album, maybe a top 2, this is just pretty generic radio rock that you would hear on Sirius XM Octane as heavy. I've heard a lot of criticism for this album, but I am a big Post Malone fan, and I feel like this isn't exactly a step in the right direction for Post, letting him do what he wants, as his previous project was just full of radio filler pop trash that I absolutely despise. And I absolutely love Post Malone, as I mentioned. Stoney, Beer Bongs and Bentleys, and Hollywood's Bleeding are some of my favorite hip-hop projects of all time. And I'm so glad that the songs are very genuine and the vocal performances are some of the best sung in his career. And the melodic rap or pop rock instrumentals fit Post Malone a lot better than some of the instrumentals he's been put on recently. And all of these songs added to the playlist, so get your pens ready. Don't Understand, Something Real, Chemical, Morning, Too Cool to Die, Socialite, Speedometer, Enough is Enough, and Buyer Beware. I have been listening to this so much this past month. I feel like Seven Dust just watered down their sound even further on this project, and it just smells so much of rock conformity that I even forgot to check this off the list for the month. These guys need to be on everyone's deathcore playlist, if you haven't already. David Simonish is an absolute beast on vocals, and everyone involved with creating this experimental deathcore masterpiece needs a kiss on the head for how well performed and how well produced this album is.
Shit, I melt down the chains that I bought from your boss, give a fuck about all of that heritage shit, since we not around.
This album is basically Rodeo, but his action figure fell over, and forgot how to sound like Travis Scott, and it just sounds like pop rap garbage.